Okay, here are a few mixture problem questions that we can solve out from class today, and some of these we struggled with a little bit in class. And here's a different way maybe to approach them for you guys in fifth hour and then in sixth hour. You've seen these, but again, you can hear me while we talk about it. So what we've got here is an investment fund that has $3,000 more invested at 8% than it does at 10%, and so those are two key pieces of information. And we want to know how much is invested at each rate. So basically what we want to do is we want to set up a little grid, and all the questions from your sheet are going to work out this way. So what have we got? We've got a 10% rate, and we've got an 8% rate. Now, how much have we invested? How much have we spent? Okay, we spent X dollars at 10%. We've spent the X plus $3,000 at 8%. Okay, so here's our types of investments. Here's how much we've spent. This is bad handwriting. Let's fix that. And then over here is our total amount, our totals. And so how do we figure out the totals? You just multiply going across. So this is going to be 0.10x, and then on the bottom 0.08 times x plus 3,000. And so now we can answer the question, how much is invested at each rate? And then it tells us that the returns are the same. Okay, it tells us that the investment and the 10% get the same return. So we know then that if we look at the 10% part and if we look at the 8% part, we have to get the same amount of money back. So when we work this bad boy out, what we're going to end up with is 0.10x equals 0.08x plus 240. And nothing changes. Your math stays the same no matter what. And the whole goal here, even though we have decimals, is to get all the x's together on one side. So subtract the 0.08x from both sides. And then this will give us 0.02x, which is equal to 240. And then divide both sides by 0.02. So x is equal to $12,000. Now that's this x right up here. That's the same x as our 10%. So if this guy right here is $12,000, how much did we invest at 8%? Well, we invested $3,000 more. And that's how you do that question. All of these questions will set up in the same way. Alright, here's another one for you guys to practice working on here. The Trail Snacks Corp mixes raisins that cost $5 per kilogram with peanuts that cost $3.80 a kilogram. How many kilograms of raisins should be mixed with 10 kilograms of peanuts to obtain a mixture worth $4 per kilogram? There's a lot going on here, but we're primarily dealing with raisins and peanuts. And what we're going to do is set this guy up again as a little chart, just like the previous problem. So we'll have raisins and peanuts. And here's the deal. We want to know the price, raisins, peanuts, and let's see. We also are going to have a mix of these two guys. So we're going to have raisins, peanuts, and the mix. So I need to know what the price is. What's the price? Well, raisins are $5. Peanuts are $3.80. And the mix altogether, we want the mix to be $4 a pound, a kilogram. So there's your price. The question is, how many kilograms of peanuts. So now when we look at the weight, then I'm looking at the raisins we don't know, but I do know that I've got 10 kilograms of peanuts, so I know that my mixture will be x plus 10. And then we're going to look at our totals. So now multiply. $5 times x is going to be 5x. 380 times 10. And then we're going to go 4 times x plus 10. So here's your setup for this. And basically, we want to know how many kilograms of raisins should be mixed with 10 kilograms of peanuts to obtain a mixture worth $4 per kilogram. Well, just put everything together. We want these two guys right here. We want these two guys right here to add up to the guy right underneath, to that 4x part. So the actual problem we're solving is 5x plus 10 times 380, and we need that to be equal to 4 times x plus 10. And this allows us to solve for when kilograms, they might not necessarily make sense when you read that story problem, but this gives us an opportunity to compare things in a way that will work. So I've got 5x plus 38 equals 4x plus 40. And then again, nothing new here. Continue on with the math that you learned a long time ago. Balance out your equation. Get all the x's onto one side. Get all the numbers onto the other. And when you're done, you end up with x equals 2. 2 what? That's the question. Well, 2 kilograms. And, of course, we're working with raisins. Okay, another one. How many liters of water must be added to 8 liters of 40% acid solution to obtain a 10% acid solution? The same setup is going to apply, the same one that we just used. We're looking at acid, we're looking at water, we're looking at a mix. So what percent of acid are we looking at? So the first question we need to know is the percent. Well, this is 40% or 0.4. Water is 0, and the mixture needs to be 10. So here's your first setup. The next one is the amount that we're going to add our weight. Well, we've got 8 liters of acid. We don't know how many liters of water, but I do know that if I put 8 together with x, I get 8 plus x. And then the last one are my totals. Multiply going straight across those rows. So this is going to be 8 times 0.40. This is going to be 0 times x. And this is going to be 0.10 times 8 plus x. Multiply straight across there. And just like what we had on the previous problem, we want these totals right here. We want the acid and the water. We want to be able to add these guys up to get the total underneath. So we're going to have 8 times 0.4 plus 0 times x equal 0.10 times 8 plus x. Again, just like with the previous problem, you might have some decimals running around here, but that's okay because we know how to do the algebra. And so this is how we're going to get started. Move all the numbers to one side away from the variable. And 3.2 minus 0.8 is 2.4 equals 0.10x. And then divide everything by 0.10. And you end up with x equals 24 liters. But 24 liters of what? Water. Okay, Ann and Emilio started on trips from Chicago and traveled in opposite directions. Ann traveled 15 miles per hour faster than Emilio. If they were 750 miles apart after 6 hours, how fast was each traveling? So keep in mind now, if we've got Chicago in the middle, you know, one is traveling this way, one is traveling this way, and so we're looking at this total distance being 750. All right, that whole thing is going to be 750. So what's the setup look like? Well, we've got Ann, and we've got Emilio, and we can set these up exactly like we've set up our previous questions. Don't forget that distance equals rate times time. That's previous knowledge you need to bring with you. And what is Ann's rate? Well, she's 15 miles an hour faster than Emilio. So if this is how we would look at it, here's the rate and the distance. Let's move Chicago up a little. So what's the distance going to be? Well, we don't know. Actually, let's follow the guidelines here. We want a time. Distance times rate. Or rate times time is distance. So the time we know is going to be 6 hours for both people. And so what would the distance be? The distance is going to be your rate times your time. So 6 times x plus 15. What about for Emilio? He's going to be 6 times x. And guess what? Both of these guys together need to add up to the total distance traveled. So these two guys, when we add them, need to add up to 750 miles. So the actual math problem we're looking at is this one. And again, follow all your rules of math. 90, 6 times 15. Combine your x's. Subtract the 90 from both sides so that you can isolate the x. And then divide everything by 12. And I believe, unless I punched it in wrong, x should be 55 miles per hour. Now, 55 miles per hour, who is that? Who is x? Emilio. So if Emilio is 55 miles per hour, what would Ann be? 55 plus 15. Okay?